Well, good evening. Welcome to the Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern, JMC Live. This week, this is going to be a combination of multiple paths of so much information that you desperately need to hear about in today's society. Me being considered a young person, I'm going to start with this topic straight up here. First thing of all things, because I've seen too many times young people leave church, and I've read this person's blog. It's a Christian Post blog that I'm looking at here. 4 big reasons young adults quit church. This is a guest blogger by Christian Piot. There's quite interesting points that I wanted to make out in this simple phrase of not wanting to be talked at anymore, Christians being seen as hypocrites, lack of relevance, and no one looks like me. These seem to be his 4 top issues within this article. I think another issue that goes on with being a young person, just to kind of point it out, is depending on how you're raised. In the current day society, young people, his attention span is like 10-15 minutes nowadays. If you didn't grow up in a home where you sat and ate dinner together, then you have these issues. And the reason why I wanted to start the show out with this topic is, yes, Christians have been considered hypocrites, but it's quite simply put, in my mind perspective, that a worldview and even a Christian view of other Christians is that we're supposed to be this holier than thou, but then you get chastised for being too good or looking too good, like there's nothing wrong with you. But the moment somebody expresses a problem, then you're looked at as a lesser of who you say that you are. I just thought that was a quite interesting topic to start out with. And speaking about...
So what can we do to... I mean, if we're going to talk about it, let's say, okay, because you and I both, we're young adults.
Yeah.
But we want to go to church, and we love to be... You and I are used to being kind of the oddball out.
The oddball out. That's an interesting phrase.
Because
oddball out.
You remember growing up, you always said, well, we were always around the older people, where there weren't any young people our age. I know as a preacher's kid, sometimes I was the only kid in the church, me and my sister. We were the only kids in the church because kids our age didn't want to come to church. Sometimes we were the only teenagers. So,
okay,
what can we do to make young adults want to return to the church, and not churches that are preaching prosperity and feel good, but truly are preaching the word?
Interesting.
Because
you have a good point there that I'm quite wondering.
Because you and I both know there's a lot of young adults out there that are really into these churches that are feel-good churches, you know.
Yeah, you're right about the whole.
And you and I both aren't about the feel-good. We're about in there getting our hands dirty and helping people and moving beyond this whole bull that's being fed to the younger our generation.
So you think so what do you think needs to be done before I answer it?
You know what I honestly think? I think the elders need to step it up, and they need to reach out to the younger.
What do you mean step it up? What?
Instead of just looking at them, and because clearly, like I said, they feel odd. They feel not welcome. They feel, well, nobody else looks like me. So what? So if they feel this way, so the elders, people that are older who may not look like them, need to come to them and make them feel like they are welcome.
And I think it's summed up with one one piece of the pie here, and hopefully our computer system didn't crash, because it looks like it has, because it's not loading. There it goes. One of the things that I've noticed that normally works is a simple fact of, if you grew up in a generation where you went to youth events and that was all you really did, and you did not have a structure
to integrate them into the
to get to regular church, to like to get off of a version of formula, so to speak. Not to think that all youth groups don't have substance. I got substance out of my youth group, but not everyone has substance that they actually absorb themselves. They're used to this high profile maintenance, fun, physically running around, and then you're transferred to a 30-minute to an hour sitting on a hard bench called a pew, or in chairs or couches listening to a message, and you're not throwing beans at each other running around anymore. It's being an adult. The problem is you have the younger adults. I've noticed a lot of churches don't have that transition anymore. Everyone just leaves.
And that is true. We have read so many articles from so many different youth pastors and pastors saying that there is a generational gap in the churches, and we are losing our future generation of the church because we're not bridging that gap.
Yep. So then I look at articles like the next one I want to talk about. Tennessee legislators push bill to protect faith-based groups on college campuses. Wednesday, the State Senate Committee unanimously approved SB 3597. If passed into law, will prevent state colleges from denying religious groups official recognition on the basis of the religious speech and worship. It also states that religious organizations should be able to operate within their particular religious mission, and only persons committed to that mission should conduct such activities.
So there is a way to keep the young adults into the church.
Keeping young adults in the church. That's what this whole article is about. And I realize
allowing them
that,
the rights to practice their faith.
This bill comes at a time when religious organizations clashing with Vanderbilt University, private university in Nashville, and then we have Senator May Beavers, considers herself part of the Nazarene denomination, is sponsoring this bill. There are similar bills to this, guys, at Ohio State University. In fact, one of my friends is the chairman or president of the Christians United for Israel in Ohio State University. I also know the University of Florida has this. This is something that needs to be brought across the board for all college campuses, whether they're a junior college or whatever.
If colleges today are going to act on what they're saying about tolerance, giving everybody an equal opportunity on campus, then why are we having to fight and pass laws to allow freedoms on college campuses? If these colleges across America that keeps preaching diversity and tolerance and love and peace and everything, why are we having to fight for our rights? Because they only want to have diverse and tolerance towards what they support. I'm for everybody. Let everybody have a group, okay? Let everybody have whatever they want. Everybody, college campuses are a melting pot of all different cultures, all different beliefs. Let everybody have their own group, We shouldn't have to go and pass laws to the government to hold up our constitutional rights of freedom of religion and freedom of speech. That is protected.
Yeah.
It's stupid. I'm sorry, I'm really talking tonight. But
you're fine. We've just integrated tonight. For those of you who are just new tuning in to the JMC Live network, we have a live Facebook chat where you can chat on Facebook. We have live Twitter, hashtag JMC, capital Live, capital JMC, and then the letter LIVE. We will talk to you right here on the JMC Live show, answering your questions for any of the articles and things that we're talking about. Well, this all comes down to what's considered a global shift in the church landscape. We have youth who say they don't feel connected culturally or age group wise to the church, so they're not wanting to go anymore. That's not something new. It's just something really being talked about now. Also,
you know, a lot of what we have seen personally from people in our generation and younger, if the church isn't giving them a reason to come, like if you're not giving me money, if you're not giving me a Wii, if you're not giving me gas cards, and if you're not giving me food and all this entertainment, I'm not coming to your church. It's the what society is calling the entitlement generation, where they feel they're entitled to get all this stuff to come and sit in your pew. Well, you better be giving me something. So instead of them giving their tithe to the church better be given to them. And we have seen that.
Yep. So here's what happens. Here's the newest update. You're looking at a graphic on the screen. The global church, a shift in the Christian landscape. Throughout the 20th century, 4,300 people were leaving the church every day in Europe and North America. Each little person on the screen counts for about 100 people. You'll see a little stick figure kind of guy that looks like he's kind of walking. That's what it is. At the same time, in Africa, just the country of Africa in general, 16,500 people were coming to Christ daily, meaning people were getting saved, born again, accepting Jesus Christ as Savior, confessing Jesus Christ as Lord, repenting of their sins. That's over 6 million people from 1970 to 1985.
And people are in Africa and different countries, they're saying there's revivals. Like
yes, we have people, and we watched the video. We have people in Africa. China. We have people in China who will sit in church 6 to 12 hours, if not 24 hours, to hear the Word of God. To hear the Word of God. We have like Tenn in Tokyo, Osaka, Laos, Seoul, Mumbai.
Jeremy, and some of these people are sitting 12 hours in a cave. They're not sitting in a $1 million building with great big screen TVs, and they're not sitting in comfortable chairs, and they're not listening through, just stop. And they're not listening to music through the best speaker system. They are just sitting there in a cave. There are hundreds of people gathered in a cave in China on any given day for 12 hours, and they are praying and they are crying, and some of these are, and they're young adults. Most of these, in China, I watched a video yesterday, most of these underground churches are being run by young adults.
Yeah, people
well, we got young adults leaving the church in America. We got young adults rising up in the communist countries and preaching the Word. Now tell me if that shouldn't make you shout for joy. We have got to get this generational gap between the young adults and our elders, because our elders have been experiencing things that's what's going on in China. We need to get these young adults, get this crap out of their brains, that they need their iPods, and they need this, and they need that to worship God. You just need the Word. The Word should be enough. It's good enough for people in a cave in China. Why isn't it good enough for us?
And I'll tell you why it's not good enough for us. Well, here's the reason why it's not good enough for us in America, and I'm going to hit the symbol. Reason why, and for those of you who just got woke up, is because here in America, we don't have to worry about death and destruction. We don't have to worry about losing something, because here's the big key issue. The big key issue is they can't own a Bible in certain parts of China. We covered earlier this week and last week about Bibles being brought into China. I realized 12 years ago that the communication about going to China is Bibles were being smuggled into China. Meaning China would not even allow a New King James, much less an NIV or whatever you read, to walk into their doors. If they saw you had it and it wasn't on their approved list of literature to own in their homes or in their libraries or on their computer, their computer internet's blocked. That's why things are happening. Now, the other thing on this chart you'll notice is the shifts in affiliation. The word affiliation is a synonym for congruency. It's a synonym for who you associate with. It means what you are known by. And specifically, if you're looking at this list, and you have to tilt your head sideways to read it, and I will read you the categories. It says Eastern Orthodox, Protestant, and Roman Catholic, and Independent. Those again are Eastern Orthodox, Protestant, Roman Catholic, and Independent. Now, if you are familiar with Ireland, the big issue was the Protestant Roman Catholic thing going on. Then you go to Italy, it's Roman Catholic against Eastern Orthodox, or unorthodox. In the U.S., it's just a mixture of everyone. Well, this list shows Christians in 1900, which is the dark bluish green color, and it's less than 200, probably about 150 Eastern Orthodox. That's this first category here. Then about maybe 125 Protestant. Roman Catholic was less than 10%. And then Independent was over 125. Well, it switched in the 2000 era. Eastern Orthodox goes up to about 225. Protestant goes up to about 380. Roman Catholic goes up to 425. And look at this massive shift, over 1,000 after the year 2000 as Independent. And you're kind of questioning, why does this exist and why are we talking about this? If you've noticed, a lot of denominations and a lot of churches have decided to rewrite their own doctrines. I've taken Bible literature courses. I have actually spoken to people in Texas that came to my class and was part of my final. What I was required to do is everyone from these different groups, and yes, I'm holding a drumstick in my hand. Every one of these different groups came in. Miranda wants it because it's hers.
Actually, this drumstick was like very first drumstick, one of the very first drumsticks I ever received. So.
Well, that was the point I was playing with it. I'm probably going to play with it some more.
When I was 3.
When she was 3. As you can see, this drumstick is all beaten down and everything. There's an analogy here I want to tell you. Well, what's happened is certain churches and their denominations have been beaten down so much that this drumstick is no longer whole. And as time has changed, as culture and society has changed, we have weakened and changed and lessened rules and regulations due to the fact that some denominations and churches in general, as far as you can see, at least in the Western society, here in America, England, and other countries, churches are run by money. They're run by non-profits. And if you don't have money, you can't keep a door open. It's that simple analogy. I hate to say that. Whereas when you go over to Africa, you go over to Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, Jerusalem, Thailand, Laos, Mumbai, Tokyo, and Tiananmen Square in China, you have churches and groups of hundreds and thousands of people in a community. No one's getting paid. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people actually own a physical Bible, and they are etching it in rocks and hiding these rocks underground. Give me a second.
Okay.
And you have to realize things are changing and going more independent because the foundations of certain things that used to be before the 1900s, before even Christianity reached the American shores, have continually, progressively changed. And that's the key word, progressively changed. There again, another political issue going on. What's going to happen, and we played a video the other day of a man from Ghana, and it's on our Eternal Flame News, who was at the One Cry prayer, and he had a message for the Church of America. This is an African American from Africa in the country of Ghana. So his English was not, American English. It was African Ghanan English. You can understand it. And he said America has to repent of its sins. Now when I look at this map, I'm going to take that little step from that man from Ghana a little bit further. The global church needs to repent of its sins. Something's wrong here if the majority of Christians are becoming independents. Or something's changed. if we got stories where young people in the United States from the ages of 18 to 35 no longer want to attend church because we look like hypocrites and you can't relay the message to them anymore, what are we doing wrong? Quite frankly, it sickens me that we are in that kind of state. But as you can see with the legislation, as you can see with this next story, things can change. People can rise above. Beyond these crazy, wild, and wacky circumstances. I'll give you another positive story to back up something at least here happening in America, where a group of NBA players are wanting to stand for the truth of Jesus Christ. Now, most people that get into a position of celebrity style status, the last thing you hear from them is Jesus Christ. It's normally, you'll see that on these award programs like the Emmys and so on and so forth, where people end up saying, oh, I would like to thank God, my father, and my dog, and my producer, and so on and so forth. I've made the joke myself, and I would like to thank the Academy today for coming here, and I like to thank my mom, my pa, my grandpa. Yeah, I've made those jokes. Many people have.
I'll tell you one that happened. Destiny's Child, Beyonce Knowles got up there and was thanking Jesus for her Bootylicious video that won.
But anyway, that's
what I mean.
But here's some good news for you guys. Check this out. NBA players band together on Christian apparel. And this is a group of them. For those of you who may not been aware and may not even realize it, but Mr. Lynn, everyone is talking about Mr. Lynn. And there are a few others that are involved with something. Now, I'm going to pull up a website that they've actually started within these Christians that are involved with the NBA. It's called Active Faith. And what he's doing, and Mr. Land is wearing, on a bracelet that quite simply states IJNIP, which really means, in Jesus' name I play.
Oh, cool.
He created a website called Active Faith, specifically My Active Faith, and it crashed. He's sold over 10,000 of these little bracelets and shirts and so on and so forth. It's a step in the right direction to try and bring some truth to Christ. And we need more people at that level of influence. Affluence is the better word, by those you can associate with, to bring the name of Jesus Christ back. I think it's stories like that that make me realize that we don't have to go on this alone. We don't have to sit here and fall apart anymore. We don't have to worry, because the point of the matter is that Christ can honestly bring us back to this point in our personal lives where nothing else can ever matter to us anymore. Because when you have a faith and you have the ability to make things work the way they should be, nothing can stop you from the goal of what God wants to do. You could be a famous NBA player. You could be just a regular person, so on and so forth. There's just so many amazing things God can do with anyone at any right level. And that's why I am so excited about actually seeing players stand up for truth. Now, I wanted to cover with you guys quite quickly, before we go into the second half of the hour. I found out a Gallup poll was recently done, and it talks about the top 5 most religious and least religious states. I'm quite curious to know, do you live in one of these states? And if so, what kind of life is that for you? The states are, and I'll just share with you a quick little map. And this is how we're going to end the first half of the hour. Check this out. The darker green states are the most above average. I'm, of course, from Texas, so we are above average. Everything is bigger in Texas. It's kind of a joke, but in this case it's true. Then you have like the below average. That's New York and Maine, Washington, Nevada. You know, Nevada passed prostitution, so of course. Surprisingly, Alaska is below average. Here in Ohio, we're about average. And I just thought this was some interesting information. It's on the Blaze. So we start with the most religious states. It starts with Arkansas, which that surprised me, Louisiana, Alabama, Utah, and Mississippi. And I think it just crashed, Miranda. You might have to go and check the internet. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm not sure if you guys can see me or not, but I'm going to keep going here. It says we got perfect streaming. It's just everything froze. I heard a phone. Was that our phone? Okay, Miranda doesn't know what I'm talking about. But I'm quite curiously wondering a few other things that I'm looking at. Now, another story that I've looked at, and it's quite interesting, and I'm not going to pull it up because I don't know if the live stream is working or not, but I'm just going to talk about it for a few minutes. Somebody recently talked about Jimmy Carter stating that he believed Jesus would support the health care reform, more specifically in forms of abortion if it was rape or incest. The Bible I read is completely against that. I can't argue for or against either one of those. And yes, we completely did lose the internet. You might have to hang up the phone, Miranda. They might be using our stream. I'm not quite sure. But
what do you mean? Okay.
Yeah, the internet's gone.
The phone is off. What are we talking about the phone?
I don't know, but the internet went out. That's all I know.
Let's just keep going.
But anyway, it's quite interesting to see pertaining, you know, the different points, and this will be like one of the next to last subjects I can talk about because I can't pull up any other articles. What do you think about the healthcare reform if you're not going to go reset the internet? What do you think? Do you think Jesus would...
Well, why we're talking about this is there was an article I found today that was posted by CNN asking the question, would Jesus support healthcare reform?
Would he support healthcare reform?
And they interviewed some ministers.
Mm-hmm.
One minister who was Lutheran said Jesus would not support the government being over the healthcare reform simply because Jesus was more about individuals helping each other and not depending on, quote, Caesar, who was their government back then, because Caesar wasn't really taking care of the poor.
Okay.
Okay? That's why Jesus said we need to help one another. We don't need to depend on the government. We all band together and work together. We can make a difference. I mean, he got 12 men together and they changed the world. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
So...
Keep talking.
So the article then also interviews another person saying, and this person said that, yes, Jesus would support Obamacare and the healthcare reform because he was about helping everybody. Although they interviewed a woman who was a big part of the evangelical movement, and she said that that is very worrisome that Christians are saying that Jesus would, because many evangelicals and Christians that came here from England came to America to get away from government control. They came to America to seek more freedom, not more suppression from the government. They are about, Americans have a rebellious nature in them to be self-sufficient, not depend on big government to take care of them, because they clearly weren't. That's why we came here. They suppressed their religious freedoms. They suppressed, you know, with taxation and without representation, and took all their money, and that's why they came to America, to seek freedom. And for Christians to say they would support it is worrisome to her, because she also feels Jesus wouldn't have supported that. So many Christians are even torn whether or not the healthcare reform is good or bad. Our view on healthcare reform is that it is not good, because we do have friends that live in Canada, and to have a routine surgery done, a friend of ours had to be on a waiting list for nearly a year. Now, the routine surgery he had would only take 2 weeks waiting to have done here in the United States. But in Canada, with their healthcare law, with their government-run healthcare, he was put on a waiting list for a year to have a simple surgery. Okay? Think about that. A simple surgery took a year. What about an invasive surgery? How long would you have to wait for that? Think about that. And I mean, do we really want to go to that? I mean, we have friends who personally are on government-run healthcare, and they say you do not want to do this. What we should do is reform what we already have. Hold these insurance companies accountable for what they're doing to patients. And put a cap on how much these insurance companies can charge people for health care, and for prescriptions, and for surgeries, and for, even simple doctor visits. That's where the reform needs to come from. That's our view.
And it looks like we are back on air now. I did have to rearrange some things downstairs. I had to make certain, I don't know, I turned the phone on and off and a few other things downstairs, and it came back on while I was gone, which is an amazing thing. Normally it doesn't come back like this. But yeah, that's Miranda pretty much covered our whole take on the healthcare scheme, especially going with our friends in Canada. That's the point. When it comes to laws and regulations in America that are currently being asked about, being talked about, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to look and see what is really going on. Now, everyone wants me to talk about the current case in court of the Zimmerman and Trayvon issue.
No, it's Martin.
Or Martin and Trayvon Martin. It's, they're saying support Trayvon, and I'm not hearing them use the word Martin as much. But they're using Zimmerman's last name, not his first name, which I think is George, isn't it? I think
yes.
It's George. But anyway, I want to show you a couple, and I mean literally a couple, an elderly couple. This is a husband and wife, and he is a pastor. More specifically, he's a pastor in the South. 47 years ago, he remembers what happened. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this couple, and I'm going to reflect it back to my own family. His name is Reverend John Neville. Lives on a quiet creek in Montreat, and a stone college his dad built in the 1930s. 47 years ago this month, that was 1965, a town of 1,500 outside of Montgomery, Alabama, and I'm very familiar with the segregation and the marches during the Civil Rights Movement coming to its crest. Every Saturday, people would come. Every Saturday, people would come to his town, and he'd put his clothes on, and he'd just start walking around talking to people. He talked to white people, he talked to black people, and he got to understand what they were thinking. And he didn't think it was about politics, so he didn't really join marches. He didn't make speeches. He wanted just to preach the gospel. He wanted to be an advocate living it. He didn't believe races should be torn apart. Back then, blacks couldn't eat with whites, but his cook in his home was welcome at the table. And but it was quite interesting. He would get a call from the local jail, and an interracial group of northern students came to help improve conditions, and they were stopped for being strangers, and the whites were free to leave if they found a place to stay. Neville got the call and put them up for the night. And then there was a big group one Sunday downtown, and this is when everything happened. There were some police around there was some attacks, weird craziness going on. And here's what he did. He ended up, he fought to raise standards and worked for better libraries. He met with principals face to face, and he knew people. So, after 54 miles of marching, people began to fill the silent, empty streets. He said it looked like a flood. The two men in the crowd eventually reached up to 25,000, and they watched Martin Luther King and others speak. But the interesting thing about him is he put in the same room white people, Black Panthers, whites, blacks, whatever that was in the area, young, old, rich, poor, he didn't care. And he realized he could find a way to let them not be afraid of retaliation. Now let's fast forward to 2012. Now, I told everyone the other day that I was just going to make a separate video about this, but I decided to just throw this right here in the middle of JMC Live and not pre-record what I'm going to have to say when I get done with this. It's just going to come out of me naturally. I've had different people hear what I'm about to tell you. Well, not the next story I'm going to tell you, but what I'll personally tell you. This next story, the pulpit hoodies and the gospel, when the zeal for the house of black outweighs zeal for the house of the Lord. Now, most specifically, the biggest changes in communication when it comes to this event is what Jesse Jackson says, and this is a quote. There's power in the blood of Emmett Till, there's power in the blood of Medgar Evers, there's power in the blood of Dr. King. Now, if you're kind of wondering, why am I reading this? This is Jermaine Thomas's point of view, currently 2012, about the same issue. So he went to one of these Justice for Trayvon events, and he put on his robe, and he walked down the street and started noticing things, and he stood on a hill to be away from it all. And ultimately, yeah, the pulpit was a place for leadership in the black community. Now, I have to pause here for a second. For those of you who realize, my first friend when I was 5 years old was African American. When I was homeless in Houston, Texas, downtown Houston, Texas, I lived with Hispanics, Latinos, Mexicans, Africans, Asians, you name it, straight out of jail, straight out of prison, straight out of the street, straight out of the hood, whatever, straight out of a drug rehab. I lived with them. And I ate with them. And I slept in the same room with them. I wasn't afraid. Not many white people can actually say that. So I kind of can relate to some of these stories. But what's interesting about what he talks about in here is he felt with a godly frustration over the fact that Jesus, the martyred and risen Redeemer, was not welcome in their conversation here. You're hearing all this talk about no justice, no peace, so on and so forth. And Mr. Thomas here ended up asking a question on his Facebook. Do you see what gospel is being preached? He says but that liberated all of humanity. Let me scroll up here a little second. From slavery and the fallen systems of this world at the very moment where the people need to be reminded of where true hope and true justice prevails is an affront to heaven. An affront to heaven. He furthermore, later on in the article, talks about Proverbs 12:16. A fool's anger is known at once, but a prudent man conceals dishonor. And then as you continually read more, he quotes Micah 6:8. Act justly and love mercy. And then Ephesians 2:14. For he himself is our peace, who made both groups into one, and broke down the barrier of the dividing wall, by abolishing in his flesh the enmity, which is the law of commandments contained in ordinances, so that in himself he might make the two into one man, thus establishing peace, and might reconcile them both in one body to God through the cross, by having it put to death the enmity. So eventually what happened to Mr. Thomas, in the case of this story, and this is something that a lot of people need to wake up and realize, as this crowd continually says, no justice, no peace, hope for this guy, hope for that guy, put this guy in jail. You know what Mr. Thomas ends up saying? He says it as bright as day, and it's right here, and I'll highlight it. I'll sit here and highlight it for you guys. You can read it along with me. He screams at the top of his lungs, and I'm not going to do it because you won't be able to understand me. He screams, Jesus is our justice. Jesus is our peace. And you know what happens when you speak the name of Jesus with boldness and truth and allow the Holy Spirit to come at you? I'll tell you what happens. It makes everybody shut up. It makes everyone stop being angry. It makes everybody calm down. And it makes everybody repent of their sins. It makes everybody want to go love on Trayon's family. It makes everybody want to love on George Zimmerman. It makes everybody want to forgive Trayon and Zimmerman and for the whole rest of the world of any form of malice done to any human being, because Jesus Christ already paid the penalty of these sins. But are you going to hear that in the mainstream media? And yes, what I just said was a snippet of a little bit of what I had planned to say at the end. It just felt right to say it right now. He goes on to say at the end, right here, the Trayon situation is merely the manifestation of humanity. Zimmerman is fallible. Trayvon was fallible. The police are fallible. You think I'm making this up? It's right here. The justice system is fallible. Our marches are fallible. Our policies are fallible. We are fallible. Therefore, we must preach about a blood that is infallible, a government that never fails, and a ruler whose reign is established on the foundations of justice and righteousness. Our ancestors understood this in the midst of an unimaginable oppression. We must repent and return. Now, let me share you my personal little racist moment. I have lived in the state of Texas in the time where the man was dragged through Jasper, Texas. I've lived through the Rodney King beatings, been to California and met people that were there at the riots. I have talked to KKK members. I have talked to Black Panther Party members. I have talked and spoken to Latino kings and Bloods and Crips. Yes, most people think I'm this little innocent man who looks like he's 12, but I have lived, breathed, and eat and sleep with the worst felons, murderers, rapists, whatever you want to call them, normal day people, some people that have $5,000 in their back pockets, lawyers, whatever. And I have to tell you that back there in Texas, Houston, Texas, downtown Houston, when these men and women would want to go to a meeting, when these men and women would want to come and stand up and talk about, well, this white man, or this honky, or this Negro, or this wet whatever, you know, I've heard all the slang, nasty words, and people blaming other people for things. I was about 19 years of age to 24 years of age. You think I look young now? Imagine me about 10 years ago. I probably looked 10 years of age. I was about 60 pounds less weight. If you can even imagine that. It's a lot smaller face. And you know what happened? I walked up to these men. Some of them had tattoos and piercings, big leather jackets, gold in their teeth, platinum in their teeth, gold rims, chopped and screwed music. In fact, one of the big Latino Kings men who was having sex with kids and whatnot actually was a rapper doing chopped and screwed music behind the building. I would walk up to them and I'd shake their hand. I would hug them and tell them that I loved them. And you know what? They would start to cry. After 2 or 3 months of living in the same room with someone who's not the same color of your skin, and you're giving them clothes, and you're giving them money, and you're eating with them, and you're asking if they need help, and more specifically, I was willing to sit down and hold their hand and pray with them. For over 2.5 years, I lived with people that were in a drug rehab, that were in a homeless shelter, transitional housing. I met with these people. Some of them probably still know who I am today. And you know what ended up happening? Most of them were twice my age. Some of them were in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, early 80s. You know what eventually happened? I ended up becoming the brother, as they would say. Some of them called me their friend. Some of them said, "You're the child that I wish I had." But you don't hear this on mainstream media because we have a progressive movement that is un-Christ-like, that is anti-Christ, meaning it doesn't want anything to do with Jesus' goal, which Jesus' goal was to love everyone. You know, there's a little song that we learned in Vacation Bible School, for those of you who still remember it. Miranda, can you sing that song real quick?
What is it?
Jesus loves little children, that little snippet about every color.
Red and yellow, black or white, they are precious in His sight.
Do you hear that? Red and yellow, black and white.
Or white.
Or white, excuse me. They are precious in His sight. Not my sight, Jesus' sight. So that's how I was raised in Texas, in the middle of KKK and Black Panther Party stuff going on. And yeah, this segregation stuff was happening. Yeah, women weren't getting paid the way they were. I'm 30, almost 32 years of age. And I'm telling you now, if you as a Christian will stop talking about justice for Trayvon and justice for Zimmerman and say justice through Jesus Christ, see, that's the part that we have a hard time dealing with today. The Bible says to pray for your enemies. Well, if you really think that George Zimmerman is your enemy, then you should lay him at the foot of the altar of Jesus Christ. If you think Trayvon is your enemy, then lay him at the foot of the altar of Jesus Christ. And more specifically, why don't you take the plank out of your own eye and lay that at the foot of Jesus Christ and let Jesus set you free from this racial division? Do you realize the potential of revival in America if we would sit here and learn to love one another? That's Jesus' greatest commandment, to love our neighbor as ourselves. Quit pointing the finger at the police. Quit pointing the finger at what someone did. This is going to be the most difficult thing in the world. I had to forgive my stepfather for about killing my own mother. I had to forgive my own father for trying to kill me before I was 1 year of age, and how he beat and molested and raped my own mother. If I had to do that with 2 fathers, can't you do this with somebody you've never met? Most of you will never meet either one of them. You know, these stories that come on the news all the time, unless you live right there in that town, it doesn't happen. Now, I do have an example in my own town of Huntington, Texas. There was 3 kids. This was in junior high. My wife's never heard this story, and if you have to leave the room, it's quite creepy. It was a white kid, a black kid, and a Mexican kid, I believe. And what happened is one of the kids, and I'm not going to say which, there was a fight, and one of them got murdered. They completely disemboweled him and cut his genitalia, and it got really nasty. It was insane. And it turned our town into like a race issue. People were bringing up the whole dragons and Jasper and so on and so forth. And I said then, as I'm saying now, because I'm not afraid to, Jesus Christ can remove the sins of the world. He can remove the sins of racism, because this isn't a racial issue. This is an issue of due process and an issue of things not being talked about properly in the media. The problem is the mainstream media. If you notice now, you're hearing stories and seeing things that aren't completely lining up with the message, aren't completely being talked about in truth. Why? Because they want you to tune in. They want you to get upset. And the progressive movement is a non-Christian movement when they want to incite you to become angry. And we're seeing people of ministers and those in political powers telling people to incite riots. So my friend in the chat is asking, what do we do? What do I suggest we do? First, I'm going to ask Miranda, what does she think we should do? You got the floor first, because I already know.
Well, the first thing is when it's brought up, let's take a stand, because everybody's talking about it. And when people start saying, like they are, many are saying, we need justice, and so stand up like the minister did, and the crowd of thousands said, Jesus is our justice. Jesus is our peace.
Exactly.
And that's what we need to do. We need to take a stand, and we need to stop feeding this media.
Stop feeding the fire, more kindling.
Yes, this media fire. And let's say, let's let's get down to what it really is about. It is about the human part of us has this desire to seek revenge and seek vengeance and an eye for an eye. Now, you know where I'm going with this.
Yep, I'm going to have to pause Miranda right now because she just said the most interesting piece of information.
Well, let me, I'm not finished. Because like I said, our human side wants an eye for an eye. And it does say in Leviticus and Deuteronomy that, you know, an eye for an eye, blah, blah, blah. But when Jesus came, he said, do not do that anymore. Let us forgive and let us pray for our enemies. We watched the movie Gandhi. If nobody has ever seen the movie Gandhi, you need to see it. Gandhi worked with every religion. He was not racist. He was not biased. And because back in 1893, he was the minority. The British government owned South Africa. They owned India. And they treated the Indians and the Africans and anybody that wasn't white as less than human. And Gandhi fought for the freedom of India, and he fought for equal rights. Now, when people started saying, I want violence, and let's kill the Muslims, because the Hindus were going and killing the Muslims, said, I want an eye for an eye. And Gandhi said, an eye for an eye only makes the whole world blind.
Exactly.
And that's what we need to do. We should not be acting with violence. We should be acting with peace. The only thing Gandhi did was he refused to comply. That is all he did. And the man was in prison for years because he just would simply not comply.
Now, Miranda pointed out a quite interesting fact that I want to get to.
So that's what we should do. If you want to see how to peacefully take a stand, I say look at Gandhi.
Well, interesting point made is the eye for an eye. Now, here's something for those of you who don't know, that when I was preparing to go to South Africa on my mission trip 12 years ago, after I went through Bible literature and studied all the major denominations of all Christian, Protestant, and Catholic, Orthodox, unorthodox sides, and as I said, the people would come into our classroom and read their doctrine, and we were able to ask questions. I decided to start looking at other faiths and what they believed. One of them I started looking at was Satanism. I read the Satanic Bible at the bookstore. I wouldn't take it home. I would go sit in a chair after I got off work and right before I went to a Bible study class. There was a chapter in one of these earlier books that really stood out to me, that should stand out to you in this movement. We're hearing, justice for this person, and this person has done us wrong, and we should go out and cause chaos and discord. We need revenge. We need retribution. Well, did you know that is almost verbatim, meaning that is almost the exact same words that Anton LaVey has written in the Satanic Bible? It says, you will hail Satan by acting upon a revengeful act that someone does to you. In other words, if somebody slaps you, the Satanic Bible commands that you go and slap them harder than they slapped you until you feel better, because it'll bring Satan happily joy. So if you want to be a tool of Satan today, and go ahead, mainstream media, quote me as saying this, you want to be a tool of Satan, sit here and keep doing all this racial nonsense. That should wake some of you up right now. You're being used by the devil to continually, and okay, I have to give some props to a lot of cases. There are a lot of cases that are race, but Jesus Christ paid the penalty of that. And if you are a Christian listening to this program, your biggest test in your entire life is what to do because of this racial situation. Christ is telling you and commanding you in His Word as His greatest commandment, not just to me as a minister and a host of a program, but to every Christian worldwide that ever hears this program or just picks up the Bible and reads Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, to love your neighbor as yourself. That requires the forgiveness of sins. You have to forgive someone else for the wrong done to you. And if you get so angry, yeah, the Bible says you can be angry, but don't let the anger keep you going. It says specifically, don't go to bed while you're angry. Don't let the sun go down.
And it also talks about having a righteous anger.
Yeah, and having righteous anger. Like I had righteous anger this week.
That minister who stood up in that crowd and said what he said, he had a righteous anger.
Yeah, that's a righteous anger.
Exactly.
That is a taking a situation and being like, I'm just so tired of like this. Like, I'm tired of hearing about this stuff. I am sick and tired of seeing the lack of compassion. Now, I understand, but most people, if something happened to Miranda and somebody shot Miranda, it's going to be hard for me to go and just say, I forgive you, and give this guy a hug and not want to go to jail. Take him to court or whatever.
Somebody already threatened to shoot me, but so...
But the point of the matter is I'm not going to take it to this next step and say, well, because this person has purple hair and they shot my wife or whatever, I need to have all purple people eaters,
let me
destroyed. No, you can't do that.
I did have, when I was 17 years old, I had a young adult, threatened to bring a gun to church and blow my head off while I was playing drums. And I was 17, and he did this because I refused to date him. I did take legal action. I got a restraining order. But you know what? I had to forgive him. I had to forgive him for wanting to take my life. Because you know what? That unforgiveness is just going to eat you up inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just say today, with my life, I have lived through I have been at the okay, I'm trying. I have stood at death's gates, and I looked it in the face. I wasn't afraid. More than once, due to the beatings and the abuse I sustained at the hands of my ex-husband. But when I was so close to death, there was a peace. And if somebody would come and kill me today, break in my house and blow me away, I would pray that my family and my friends could forgive that person, because you know what? In the end, I'm in a better place. I'm in heaven, and they need to know that I am with my King. I am with Jesus, and I'm waiting on them to come to heaven someday too, and be reunited.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. All of us have an expiration date on our life, and we're all going to die. But the point is, how have we lived? How have we lived? What have we done with the time we have here?
Exactly.
So
I
just wanted to, because you talked about what if somebody did kill me, which that has almost happened.
So with that being said, to just sum this up and go on to our final topic of some Bible prophecy before we end tonight's program. There's going to come times in our lives where a racist situation is going to occur, whether you're white, black, brown, yellow, whatever color of the rainbow you are, whatever denomination of your church is, whatever age group you fall in.
Disability.
Yeah. You have to let Jesus Christ move you to a point. Forgiving yourself, forgiving someone else is about taking a personal inventory of yourself. And yes, while you might want to go and take someone to court because they killed someone, you might end up wanting to sue someone. Is that the exact step that Christ wants you to do? A perfect world where you're completely consumed by Jesus Christ. I wouldn't think Jesus Christ would sue anyone. I don't think Jesus Christ would take him into court. And honestly, in this case here, I think Jesus Christ would walk up in the middle of them and say, you need to forgive Mr. Zimmerman and let him go his way, let him have his job, and tell everyone to repent of their sins, and probably overturn the courtroom table.
However,
we are human.
We are human. And there is the human side of us that does want justice, and there we have a right to want to seek justice.
Yep. So now on to some Bible prophecy.
Yeah, I found this one.
Miranda, you want to start it off?
Well, we're always keeping people up to date about microchips, RFID chips, and implantable chips into the body or clothing now, as this article states. A school
This is in Brazil.
in Brazil is wanting to implant computer chips into the school uniforms of the children
20,000 students.
to alert parents if the students cut class. It's a bit scary, but
They're going to use T-shirts with chips, is what it says. Radio frequency chips in intelligent uniforms let a computer know when their children enter the school, and it sends a text message to their cell phones. Parents are also alerted if kids don't show up 20 minutes after classes begin with the following message: your child has not arrived at school. Now, the reason why they're doing this, Brazil is one of those countries where sex trafficking is very big, bestiality is very big, a bunch of weird things are happening in Brazil, and they're wanting to try and take a big brother approach, as they call it, steps taken to protect their children. We already have RFID for dogs, we already have RFID for babies. It was only a matter of time before a school stood up and said, we want RFID.
But the thing is, the dogs and babies, they're actually implanting the chips into their bodies.
Yes.
I mean, we do that here. You can go down to the pet store here in town, and they'll put a microchip in your animal when you buy it.
If the student skips 3 times, parents will be asked to explain the absences. And the city itself has invested $670,000 to test design the microchip T-shirts.
I found this article on ktla.com.
Yep, all these links tonight for tonight's show will be just like last night's Eternal Flame News. I know that link's not going to work in the chat room because it cuts it up. But we will post all the links for you to be able to read every article that we cover tonight. You'll be able to look at yourselves, verify the information we're talking about, so that you can carry the message on further. Speaking about a message,
Where are we posting these links? If you didn't say
in our videos, in our podcasts,
okay.
every week, video, podcast, so on and so forth. MySpace, Facebook, Twitter. There's about 8 or 10 other sites that I'll be posting online.
Okay, because you just didn't say where you were.
To be able to post these different stories. Now, another progressive movement.
This goes. I find
This
a lot
goes
of
with
school.
Well, yeah, it goes with school, but it goes with our earlier talking about progressives. And one of the things that I talked about last night, and we'll continually do this. Oh, by the way, for those that did listen last night, I have already forwarded some information of ISBN numbers for particular college and high school level books across the nation that have
Written history, basically.
re-educated our students to learn a new form of history called, and otherwise known as the re-education system that you find out in Germany when Hitler was in power, or even when you go to old Russia, and when you go specifically to China. It's called almost like an internment camp type situation, without putting America in an internment camp. By the way, we did a story not too long ago about how our own military has an internment specialist position for the National Guard. The word internment is related to the Holocaust, and otherwise known as concentration camp. So this is quite interesting when you look at this next story. New York City, and I know we have a viewer in the chat who lives in this area. What if I told you there's 50 words your child will no longer see? New York City, words that will no longer be taught in an educational book because they're not going to be on a test. Now, the key phrase of the sentence says 50 words banned from school tests. Well, if it's not going to be tested on, it's not going to be in the book. Well, guess what? I have all 50 words.
Now they're trying. This hasn't passed, so they're just attempting to pass this, and let's pray to God they don't, because they want to take out words such as slavery out of school. Not even teach about slavery like it never existed. The birthday. You're not even allowed to say birthday.
I have all of the 50 words.
Yeah, it's insane.
This is monumental moment for JMC Live tonight as I share with you on air. And yes, I am going to go over the 1 hour limit because I'm not limited to how long I have to do this program. You have to see for yourselves and hear for yourselves the 50-word limit. Now, I don't know if I'm going to read them all myself or we're going to split it between Miranda. It depends on how long I can read these words and how much this glass of water is going to actually go through me.
Well,
like I said,
if you get tired, I'll take over.
Like I said, the links are going to be posted in our YouTube videos and podcast. These are 50 words. We did something like this with 100 words the other day. It was a show a couple of years ago. I read all of the political government connected words that were found in something else. But anyway,
okay,
without further ado, I'm taking a drink of water.
50 words that are possibly going to be banned from the New York City schools.
Here we go. I feel like David Letterman. Oh, oops, I said somebody's name.
The top 50.
The top 50 word list that you can no longer say in America. Yeah, it's quite creepy.
No, in New York City schools.
New York City schools. Here it is. And for those of you who want to follow along in the chat, I'm going to try and give you a link. And like I said, this podcast, it's going to be listed below, and we'll have a title of it, 50 Words Banned. But without further ado, this is the 50 words banned from a school.
Okay. Get on with it.
Abuse. Now, this is saying specifically physical, sexual, emotional, and psychological abuse. So, any stories that have anything to do with this, positive or negative, you'll no longer hear about. Alcohol, beer, liquor, tobacco, or drugs. So much for the Red Ribbon Campaign, which is promoting an anti-drug, beer, alcohol, ATF, so on and so forth.
What about DARE?
DARE. You can't talk about that anymore. MAD. Your mother against MAD driving. You can't talk about that anymore. Birthdays. Your child will no longer be allowed to celebrate a birthday in school. Why? Because Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate them. Bodily functions. You cannot say F-A-R-T or P-O-O-P anymore. And side note, we would go to the office to get spankings as children saying those words, but I'm not getting it. You can't even talk about the bodily functions. Well, you can't even mention it in an educational class such as science. Cancer and other diseases. That just blows my mind. You live in New York. Well, you can't talk about a catastrophe or disaster anymore, like a tsunami or hurricane. Hurricane Katrina will not be talked about in New York City. What the Coast Guard did and what happened in the rest of the country, we won't be able to do it. Celebrities. Famous people, if you made a difference in the world, it doesn't matter. Can't talk about it. Children with serious issues. You can't talk about serious issues anymore. Cigarettes. Computers in the home. Well, not everyone has a computer in the home because you're poor. Any form of crime. We can't talk about crime anymore. Death and disease. Divorce. Evolution. You can't talk about evolution because it's wrong. I agree on not being able to talk about evolution, but they're not even going to talk about creationism either. That's the interesting thing in here. Expensive gifts. Vacations and prizes. Can't talk about that anymore. Why? Because they want to spread the wealth. Why? They want to spread the wealth so thin that you can't afford a vacation, an expensive gift, or a prize.
Or it might offend somebody who's not...
Gambling involving money. When you go and buy a lotto ticket, it's not going to be considered gambling anymore. It's just going to be considered a cool thing to do. Oh, it's a cool thing to do. Look at this. We got more full screen Halloween. Now, we do shows about Halloween, how it's a paganistic holiday, and how All Hallows Eve is the Christian format. Guess what? You can't talk about either of them. Why? Because it'll offend the Wiccans.
No,
that's what it says right here, offend Wiccans. Homelessness. I've been homeless. Guess what? I can't go to New York City and tell about my story about how I survived as a homeless person.
So I guess
the Salvation Army can't come to your school anymore and talk about how they need money. If you're going to ring a bell in New York City and anywhere near the school, you can't tell you're feeding the homeless anymore. Why? Because they're not allowed to talk about that. This won't be in an exam. Homes with swimming pools. Why? Because not everyone has a swimming pool in their home. Hunting. Junk food. In-depth sports of knowledge, in-depth discussions of sports that require special knowledge. Nuclear weapons. Occult topics. Parapsychology, politics. You can't learn about the origins of politics anymore. Poverty, pornography. You can't learn about how children and young adults need to be protected from pornography and sex trafficking, because if you don't sit here and do the proper steps of getting your thumbprint and everything, you could be sold in the sex trade. Well, they won't let you talk about any form of it, positive or negative. Rap music. You're not allowed to talk about rap music because apparently listening to any form of rap music is considered racist. Religion. You can't talk about any religion. I don't care if you're an atheist or you're a Pentecostal or you're a Christian, whatever. They won't let you do that anymore. Religious holidays. Christmas, Yom Kippur, Ramadan. It does not matter what you are. Nope, no more holidays. They're going to, what's going to happen is when, and there's a college that's already recognized this, there's no more religious holidays. They're making them go to school on the 24th and 25th of December.
And that's communism.
See, this is what communism does. It removes all forms of any kind of religious entity because they want to wipe it completely clean off the map. Because
they want the people to worship communism and worship the government.
Yes, the government is your new god. Rock and roll music, running away, sex, slavery, terrorism, TV and video games, excessive use, traumatic material, upsetting such as animal shelters. Animal shelters, I think that one's weird.
Animal shelters?
Yes, you can't talk about rats and roaches, witchcraft, vermin, violence. I'm not making this stuff up. War and bloodshed, weapons, guns and knives. Well, there you go. They want to tell you can't talk about guns. Well, if you can't talk about guns, you can't learn about what your laws are to have a gun, much less what you want to do. See, what happens is you think we have this 1% spread the wealth liberal thing going on. When you become progressive, you think this 1% is bad. When you go to a progressive, socialist, communist type scenario, all these people that you guys are so adamantly saying you want nothing to do with, they're the ones that are going to completely run your lives. If you're the CEO of a business, the government practically almost owns your business. You're still going to make almost the same amount of the money. Why? Because you get to make more money, but you cannot make any less money, and you can't earn any extra money. This is in America, New York City. One of it's considered, which this is a phrase you don't hear anymore, the Big Apple. Do you know why it was called the Big Apple?
No.
It was called the Big. See, my wife didn't even learn this. I learned this in Texas.
I
learned this in Texas. All right.
Tell me.
Oh, wow. You want to know what the Big Apple is? I'm going to sit here and tell you, and I want to make certain I got it right. The Big Apple, as pertaining what I'm thinking about, the nickname for New York City. New York City nickname. First popular by John J. Fitzgerald in the 1920s, a sports writer for the New York Morning Telegraph.
Okay.
Since the 70s, it was a promotional campaign in the New York Convention of Visitors Bureau, known as NYC and Company. Now, the other thing where it progressively turned from that there to down here, the other mysticism, as they call it, is that Johnny Appleseed is the other, story, which is a real man here in Appalachia area, planting all the apples, so on and so forth. The apple was considered the fruit mascot of America at one point. New York City was considered the portal entry of America. Why do you think they put the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor area? Because this was more important than San Francisco, more important than California, because everybody was coming into the colonies, into the rest of America as it grew through New York City. New York City was one of the biggest cities in America. So the phrase "the Big Apple" was meaning big opportunity, big chance to do something with your life. The big phrase of American dream. Everyone in Texas and other states in the South, their dreams are either to go to San Francisco, Hollywood, or New York City, or move to the Bahamas or something, crazy or whatever. But the Big Apple, that's a phrase you don't hear anymore. We're turning the Big Apple into the rotten apple. The apple with a worm in it. If you don't learn to properly educate yourselves, as we call the last Eternal Flame news program, if you don't learn what society as a whole is trying to do in America. Do you realize this could be, you could sit here and fight against this? Not physically fight, but politically fight. And when I say that word political, it makes every Christian sit here and say, well, all politics are dirty. I'm like, that's fine. They could be as dirty as they want. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and He can wipe slate clean every single legislation of the House of Representatives, of Congress, and even the White House itself, all the way down to our governing of each state, all the way down to your county and your city and your province and your whatever you're in, that township, whatever you call where you live. Right where you're listening to this broadcast today. All across the globe, people listen to this program. There's over 10,000 podcast listeners right now. Several thousand on YouTube. Over 100,000 right here on live stream will listen to this broadcast. So people are listening and paying attention. This isn't a minority thinking. The beacon of light and hope used to be considered America. And if we continue down this path that we are, re-educating our children, because they realize that about, I'm 31.
You don't know how old you are?
Well, I'm about 31. I'm going to be
31.
I'll be about 32. Yeah, you can, anyone, side note, if you want to embed this video, if you want to embed the podcast, you want to download the podcast, you go right ahead. I thank you for sharing our stories. You have a complete 100% approval for that. You want to download this or something and share it, you can do it like that too. I don't care. We don't get paid for any of this stuff. You can have it. No problem. What happens when you sit here and not do your duty?
I think, and everybody's on this kick, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat?
Yeah.
Let's get down to it. We need to be patriots.
Yep.
We need to be patriots to our country. That is what we need to be. Get rid of a Democrat label, a Republican label, an independent label. We are patriots, people. We should be standing for the Constitution, standing for truth, and standing for righteousness.
Oh yeah.
And that is what we need to be.
Now here's the last piece of the puzzle. This is my only shock and awe moment of the program I'm going to give you. And
we're done.
And then we're practically done, unless Miranda wants to go on a roll, and
No.
I can go on a roll with this. I want to show you,
No.
This is the freedictionary.com, and I can show you somewhere else. Internment, the act of interning or confining, especially in wartime, the state of being interned, confinement. That's the Free Dictionary's definition of the word internment. Now, if you go to the evacuation internment of San Francisco, Japanese, 1942, you can also go to Ukraine history, you can also go to the Holocaust, Children of the Camps, PBS story, internment history, PBS of all places. Hello? You hear what I'm saying? This is where we're going. Here's theirs. Following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066, permitting the military to circumvent constitutional safeguards of American citizens in the name of national defense.
So, if they've done it before, if the government has done it
Our
before,
own government has done this. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I've had friends that are Asians that were in these camps in San Francisco and other places across the country. We had people in camps because of who they were and what they're about.
because of their race.
Now, let me fast forward this to 2012. And I don't care if I get a knock on the door in the next hour and a half after showing this, because this is public. Why don't you go to this nice little website, as I call the military site, known as the United States Army. GoArmy.com. Careers and jobs. Here it is, America. You want to see our future in the next 5 to 10 years? History repeats itself. I hate quoting Karl Marx, but for once, he has something to say. We've done this once in America. We've done this overseas in other countries. If you've already clicked that link, you're probably screaming in horror. I'm not making this up. This has been on Alex Jones, and it's been on mainstream media. It's been on Glenn Beck, but I'm talking about it right here tonight. Internment Resettlement Specialist 31E. Open to enlisted, active duty, Army Reserve, open to women, entry level. Job duties: supervision of confinement and detention operations, external security to facilities, counseling, guidance to individual prisoners within a rehabilitative program, records of prisoners, internees, and their programs. Are you hearing this, America? Some of the skills you learn: military laws, jurisdiction, self-defense, use of firearms, interpersonal communication skills, search, restraint, custody control of seniors. If America continues down its dark path of progressivists and New York City passes a law to remove those 50 words, being a Christian in America will be a crime in the next 4 years. I'm not making this up. You've seen the stories for yourself. You're looking at the GoArmy.com site for yourself. I didn't fictitiously make this position, and no one's really talking about it that much anymore. Because they're like, well, what can I do? This was originally created for terrorists. Well, who are considered terrorists? Do you realize right now in China, and right now in places in Africa, and in Canada, and North Korea, that being a person that believes in Jesus Christ, that you're either a terrorist or you're mentally insane and you need to be re-educated. What did we just say is happening in New York City? Re-education, removal of 50 keywords and phrases no longer being talked about. And the interesting thing is, for those that, you know, that's the reason why yesterday when we talked about being a conservative, is something where there's two forms. Those that are weak conservatives that can be easily swayed, and then there are those like me and my wife that when you sit here and you come against me, I will end up through the power of Jesus Christ being able to do something that's not even physically, humanly possible. It's supernatural. The fact that I did 2 weeks of programming 6 days straight while in the midst of taking 3 finals for college was supernatural Holy Ghost power. I've been asking people how to take this program to the next step. I realize taking that next step is a big jump. It's like programs tonight. Yeah, we've gone over half an hour longer than normal. But there's days where you have to go a half hour of normal. And I like to thank the several amounts of people that have come and gone through our chat tonight on Facebook and Twitter and the live stream chat. It's been an amazing night, hasn't it? Talking about educating yourselves. I know Miranda probably has something she wants to say.
No.
Because me and her have looked this article over before. We've talked about it before.
We've been talking about this for 2 years.
Yeah, that's the interesting point. JMC Ministries has been covering these kinds of stories, specifically this website, for over 2 years.
And we've been covering the RFID implantable chips since we started 3 years ago. 2008,
2009, we've been talking about RFID technologies. We've been talking about the barcode and the next step on what would look like a actual physical form of the mark of the beast. And it's no different. These stories, internment specialists, so on and so forth, it's no different than psychologically connecting people to horror films or excited films. Or more better yet, for those of you that are younger, or you have children, whatever, what do you do for your child to make them not be afraid? You go with them, you talk to them, you show them that there's no bad monster under the bed, and they get used to sleeping by themselves. Or better yet, younger age. You take your kids to school. It's the first day of school. They miss mommy and daddy. Well, you promise them a nice ice cream sandwich when they get out of class. You show them at 2:45 with an ice cream sandwich. Kid eats the ice cream sandwich. She feels okay and goes back the next day. What we're doing in America is we are giving everyone ice cream sandwiches every day. We're slowly integrating a new way of thinking into the hearts and minds of not only Americans but the rest of the globe, because the movement that's happening here today is far more insane and far more dark than anything that's ever happened, because we're able to medically, physically, so on and so forth, change rules and regulations and create new sins. Yeah, I've said it, create new sins. Who would have ever thought you would live in a day where a man can physically, genetically almost, change into a woman, look and sound like a woman, but honestly really is still a man? That's a new sin. It's been around for like, what, 20, 30 years now, but who would have thought we would live in a day where we have technology such as RFID, where you can put something in your body and I can just swipe my hand across somewhere. Where's that at? It's happening right now in China. They got a watch and a wristband going on. Cashless society. Who wants a cashless society? I'm going to say something quite dangerous. What happened with MasterCard just recently? I have MasterCard. I'm on alert. I also have government blocks on my accounts and so on and so forth. Socialists that want to destroy our current currency system. Well, if you can't get everyone to want to go buy gold and you don't want to make everyone be socialist, what are you going to do? You create a chaos theory. You create a chaos and discord situation where a bunch of hackers go into an agency and disrupt something. All in the name of trying to expose those that are doing bad. Someone's going to come in along the other side and take advantage of it in a different direction. I know hackers and all sorts of people listen to this program too, and some of you claim to be Christians, some of you don't. But you have to be careful what you're doing. I don't want people to get arrested. I don't want people to do any things that are illegally wrong. I want you to do things that Christ calls you to. But we're getting to a point right here in America where being a Christian is not a sin, it's a crime. This may be one of the last few programs we'll be able to say this sentence without getting in trouble. And we're going to say it either way. You do not compromise your faith because of human law. You do not compromise your own belief because of what man says or will do to you. And at some point you will be tested that. Brandon and I are going to be tested. We already are. I'm probably in a position to get kicked out of college because I am saying at this point that what you're teaching me is wrong. And it's one-sided and I don't believe it.
Well, we've already had death threats, so.
We've had death threats. We've had people threaten us physically. I've had flat tires. I've had all sorts of stuff.
Well, the death threats came in the chat room. People just
Yep, we had chat room stuff. We had phone calls, emails. Well, the phone calls and emails are all tracked. Google Voice picks up the calls. You leave a voice message. It actually types it out for us. It's quite nice and nifty. I realize a lot of you can't carry that weight of load, and some of you are going to crash and burn and compromise your faith.
But at the same
Others
time,
of you are going to be excited about this. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to continue to educate yourselves on things that you don't understand. And I want you to keep asking about both sides of the story. Be careful on looking at both sides of the story, because if someone of an easily swayed mind starts looking at a progressive, non-Christian route, you're more than likely to do it. So I suggest for those of you who already know who you are, and even if you don't, you need to get in the Word of God. It's quite simple. You need to start reading your Bible. For those of you who don't have a Bible, I have something I can give you. I can give you a copy of this Armed and Dangerous. I do this all the time. Better yet, I have some books I'm going to be giving away here this coming week. From Professor Dennis Ray, AWOL Christians. and we're waiting on getting the copy for that one. But we're gonna be able to give away The Stakes Are High. If Miranda can hand me the book, I'll show you what it looks like. It's on the floor.
Right there on your desk.
They're right here on the desk. All right, I can't do that without making too much noise, but I'll show it to you guys another time.
Well, anyway, The Stakes Are High is about our public schools.
Yeah, it's about our public schools.
And how we need to take back our public schools. So,
but yeah, here's the thing.
It goes along with what we're talking about.
So tonight, at the end of the show, if you want one of these books, I have 3. 3 people can get this book tonight for free. The Stakes Are High, God's Wisdom for Our Public Schools by Professor Dennis R. Ray.
Well, how are the people in the chat going to get
How are the people in the chat? How are the people on YouTube? How are the people in the podcast? How is anyone going to get this book? It's quite simple. I need your name, I need your number, and I need an address, and I need it sent to an email to officialjmcministries@gmail.com. That's officialjmcministries@gmail.com. I have 3 of these books I want to give away.
I guess
The Stakes Are High, God's Wisdom for Our Public Schools. The first 3 emails, based on time and day, will get this. I need your email soon. I need your address, your phone number, so I can call to let you know you're getting it or not. This will be sent to you. You won't owe us anything. I got 3 I can give away. The Stakes Are High, God's Wisdom for Our Public Schools. Email us now, officialjmcministries@gmail.com. If you don't want that, one person can get an Armed and Dangerous book tonight. What is Armed and Dangerous? Armed and Dangerous is it says it's for teenagers, but I'm going to go ahead and say it's not just for teenagers. What it is its contents, and it has keywords. It's kind of like a dictionary for the Bible. Accountability, worship, trust, parents, goals, gossip, criticism, courage. It's got words, and then it's got Bible verses that talk about the words. Like this goes directly to drug abuse. Over here, bad habits, giving, Satan, Bible verses, key Bible verses that are important in your walk with Christ. These are things that you need. Also, for those of you who are more political, I can actually give you, and I think I have them in a drawer below me, I have several, probably about 10 or 20.
More than that.
Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. I have signed, donated copies from across the nation of people who donated to the Heritage Foundation.
No.
They're not. Oh no, not the Heritage Foundation. This one's the Heritage Foundation. These that I have are from the young Americans. Yeah, this is mine that I got for them. Let me try and see if I can find one here because they're in the drawer right below me. Yeah, these aren't signed, but I have some. The Young Americans Foundation. There's a section right here in the bottom where people can actually sign and show where they're donated from. Try and look down here. See if I can find some. Oh, here's a stack. All right, here's a stack. It's got someone's name, their city and state. This is Arkansas, Florida, California, Virginia, so on and so forth. You send me an email to officialjmcministries@gmail.com.
And make sure they put in the subject of the email.
Subject of the email, Declaration of Independence.
Or
Constitution. Or if you're wanting to do...
The Stakes Are High.
The Stakes Are High. Stakes Are High. We got 3 of those. 3 people tonight can get The Stakes Are High. Subject, The Stakes Are High. 3 people. officialjmcministries@gmail.com. Let's see how many copies I got in my hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 people tonight can get a signed copy of the Declaration of Independence, Constitution of the United States of America. These are not signed copies from us. These are signed copies from people across the United States that paid for these. Sponsored by the Young Americans Foundation. That's YAF.org. And we've done 2 programs with YAF.org. We did the one for 9/11. We also did one for Veterans Day. And we're probably going to be doing a few more in the future. So we have lots of stuff to give away here on the program tonight. And that's why it went so long. We'll probably end up, depending on how many people email us tonight. And we already got 1 person sent. That's amazing. We'll check that here in a little bit. Actually, I can check it probably right now.
No, let's just get on with the show.
But, yeah, Miranda wants to get on with the show. what I'm going to do tonight, because of the errors with the program, this is going to be a straight podcast. And yes, Randy, I see your email. I got you. Got you right here. What I can do, I can send you Stakes Are High, and I'll also send you this mini copy of Constitution and Declaration of Independence. I'm just going to randomly pick one out of the stack. Right there in the wonderful world of Texas. So, what, Miranda? Yep, this is the end of tonight's program. I know it's been a long night. It's been an amazing time together. I'd like to thank you guys for coming. Since this will not be a regular video because the program stopped, this will probably be uploaded very quickly. Yeah. We won't have to edit it so much. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get some more water. I'm going to let Miranda sit down in my nice new chair and start editing some videos. Turn on the AC. We'll see you next week, Friday, 7 p.m. Eternal Flame News. We'll be covering whatever comes in between now and next week. More updates on Israel, more political stuff, more biblical stuff, and then there'll be another JMC Live. We'll be covering Easter. Also, special for tomorrow, we'll be starting our new JMC Bites devotional. I'll have one uploaded sometime before the end of the afternoon, before 5 o'clock, hopefully. I'll have that posted along with tonight's program. So thank you for coming tonight. God bless you guys, and we hope to see you either tomorrow for JMC Bites, or maybe we'll see you at Eternal Flame News, or maybe even at 7 p.m. on Friday, or maybe JMC Live Saturdays at 9 p.m. God bless, and we'll see you soon.